everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the love-hate relationship I have with my own original characters. As of now, I've only actually introduced, and you don't even know a lot about them, but I've only introduced one of my characters so far, that being Kohaku Hime. I actually have quite a few original characters. Not all of them are as well loved as my main ones are. But the main characters that I stick to are Kohaku Hime, Nozomi Lawrence, Amelia Tuffin, and Junpei Oshiro. The main issue I have with characters and OCs, whatever, I struggle developing personality. I can find lore, I can make lore, whatever. I can make designs, but trying to figure out a true personality for a character without them feeling stereotypical or nuanced is difficult for me. The main character I find myself to struggle with in this aspect is Nozomi. Nozomi is actually probably one of my favorites just because I enjoy her lore. I think that she could be an interesting character if I didn't struggle with personality. Nozomi's lore actually starts before she was even born. Her story begins when her parents were in high school. Her father was freshly sent overseas from Germany. Excuse me. Anyway, and her mother was a teenage girl who was struggling with her own manic episodes. So eventually, after a lot of pining from her mother's side, the two got together. Whilst still teenagers, they procreated, sadly. I don't remember how old they actually are or were when that happened. I wrote it down somewhere, but I can't find it anymore. So they were teenagers, probably older than 16. And thus, Nozomi was born to two unstable individuals. Her parents both dropped out of high school so that they could start working early and afford to take care of her. While her father's parents were back in Germany already, Nozomi's mother was disowned for getting pregnant at such an early age. Eventually, and unfortunately, the two procreate again once they're legal, and they end up having twins. And then eventually again, where they have another little girl. So now there's 4 little girls in the family, and 2 still very unstable individuals. Time passes, blah blah blah. When Nozomi is the ripe age of 7, her mother realizes that this isn't the life she wants for herself. She doesn't want to be tied down with children at the age of 24. She doesn't want to be a homemaker when she still has years of her life to be living. So, in all intelligence, she decides to abandon her family. The last time Nozomi saw her mother was as she was about to leave, where Nozomi came up to her, asked where she was going, and told her to be back soon. Which meant now there was a man in his early 20s left alone with 4 young girls to take care of. The youngest not even being 3 years old yet. So he falls into a depression because, for one, the woman he thought that he was going to marry just got up and left, and he had no idea how to take care of these girls. He was a man. He was raised in a strict household. He barely knew about female anatomy until his girlfriend told him. At the beginning, he tried his best to take care of them, but eventually he started turning towards alcohol and slowly but surely began to neglect his daughters. This led to Nozomi becoming the main caretaker of the household. Eventually, Nozomi's father had completely spiraled. His alcoholism was getting so bad to the point it was affecting him in his daily life, such as at work. It actually caused him to get fired. Nozomi, who was now around 8, saw this and began taking up odd jobs around her neighborhood to help her father out. Once she had made at least $40, she showed it off to her father, proud of her work, and she assumed that she would be praised by him for what she had done. And sadly for Nozomi, her father didn't. He began to yell at her, telling her that they weren't a charity case and that she had to take the money back. Nozomi, who was only 8, didn't understand why her father was being so rude about this. She was only trying to help him. After that day, the neglect only got worse. She couldn't tell anymore if her father was purposefully ignoring her siblings and refusing them meals, or if he just didn't have the money to afford them anymore. As a naive child, she still had hope in her father, so she continued to do odd jobs, hoping that one day he'd see the work that she was doing and that she only wanted the best for him and her family. The second time she presented her earnings to him, he completely lashed out. He even hit her. And after that, her father only got more and more violent. She endured multiple variations of physical abuse during this time that could range from just blatant hitting to locking her out of the house for days. Her sisters tried to help, but Nozomi knew that they would never truly understand since they were far younger than she was. They didn't even process the fact that their mother had left for good. Everything changed for Nozomi after she turned 10. One day, she was particularly excited to come home, as a neighbor she had helped out often paid her extra. When she opened the front door to her house, she realized that all 3 of her sisters had been shot and were dead or in the process of dying. She looked over to see who the perpetrator was, and it was none other than her own father, who was now holding the same rifle that he used on her sisters at his own head. As she watched the bullet crack through her father's skull, she was frozen. She was too young to be able to process this. As she awoke from her state of shock, she didn't cry, she didn't scream. She was silent. She crawled onto the floor with the motionless bodies of her family members and laid there, curled up between the unmoving arms of her father. Nozomi never told another soul what had happened. She didn't report it to the police. She didn't even tell any of her neighbors. She left the corpses laying there until they began to stink and no longer looked like any of her family members. And then she dragged them out into the backyard, doing her best to cover them up. Plot armor, no one ever found out unless she told anybody. After that event, she began to experience symptoms of schizophrenia, which were induced by her PTSD. Nozomi was very outcasted in school because she seemed standoffish and constantly in a state of panic. Which she was. Her family died. She used her father's cards to make it look like he was still active, and working and such. Yeah, and then she got a girlfriend who she's unhealthily attached to, but they're gonna work that out. So now that her lore is out of the way, let's talk about why I hate her. I say this with all the love in the world. Nozomi has no fucking personality. There is so much backstory that I have for her. There's more than I even told here. But she technically does have a personality, but it's not how I want to actually portray her. She's supposed to be this almost maternal figure. She takes care of people, and sure, she puts them in their place occasionally, but she doesn't just seem like an asshole, and that's what I'm doing with her right now. She just seems like a giant bitch. And I hate it, and it makes her such a difficult character to actually think about, because the way that other people see her, because of her personality that I have created for her now, it's not how I want her to be seen in my head. And this goes for a majority of my characters. The only character I think I have that isn't like completely mischaracterized is Kohaku. Oh my god, and I can't do it anymore. I need to fix her, but it's too late to fix her at this point. Anyways, I love her, lesbian queen. Thank you guys so much for listening to me ramble. I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy it. If it's really annoying, you can put me on 2x. I won't mind. If you'd like more OC deep dives or whatever, or a more descript one of Nozomi, just tell me. Or if you have any other video recommendations, please comment them.